This is Basketball Infinite. Make sure to like and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications, baby. Alright, we've got a big, giant, humongous, holy macaroni video today, and that is the first part of my top 100 NBA players at the All-Star break. I am super excited to release this list. It is going to be a very, very fun time. But first, let's look at the 25 players I have just outside of my top 100. There's definitely some stud muffins here. I think RJ Barrett's on the rise. I think Anthony Edwards, he needs to improve his efficiency, but he's definitely got talent. Dante DiVincenzo's another player that I think's a stud muffin, and these players are only going to rise. So let's get to my top 100. Here we go. And at number 100, Kevin Love of the Cleveland Cavaliers. One of the more tough players to rank because he's only played 2 games this year, but he has value, but again, his value is declining, and again, he's only played 2 games, but based off of his reputation, I'm going to keep him number 100 for now. Number 99, Patrick Beverley of the LA Clippers. Beverley's actually shooting over 40% from three-point range, and he's got value for one of the best teams in the league as a defensive ace and a leader. Number 98, Goran Dragic. Dragic is getting older, but he definitely still has value as a guy who helped lead his team to the finals last year. He is averaging 15 points a game in 21 games this year. Number 97, TJ Warren of the Indiana Pacers. So any player who's played at all this year is eligible, aka Klay Thompson isn't eligible. And Warren's only played a few games, and Bubba Warren was amazing, but again, the problem is he's only played 4 games, and he might not be coming back this year, but he's still in my top 100 from now. Number 96, Tim Hardaway Jr. of the Dallas Mavericks. Hardaway Jr. has definitely had an up and down career, in my opinion, but he's definitely got value for the Mavs this year. He's been more consistent, which is what gets him in my top 100 right now. He's averaging 16 points a game. He's shooting 38.8% from 3, which is pretty decent. Number 95, a guy who's rising rapidly, is Michael Porter Jr. MPJ's been outside of my top 100 pretty much his whole career, but his consistency has gotten him into that top 100 range, and he's got a lot of potential. He needs to improve his playmaking, but a guy with 6'10 shooting over 40% from 3 is a stud muffin. Number 94, one of the more underrated players in the league, Thaddeus Young. Zach Levine called him the MVP of the Bulls season so far, and he's low-key arguably having one of the best seasons of his career. He's averaging 4.4 assists per game. He's shooting over 60% from the field. Number 93, Spencer Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie has only played a couple of games this year, so he's eligible for this list, and he has value. I would call him a top 100 player, but he just hasn't played much this year, just like some of the other players I've mentioned so far, like TJ Warren and Kevin Love. But Dinwiddie definitely has talent. I'm interested to see if he does stay in Brooklyn or not, and we'll see what happens in the upcoming months. Number 92, Steven Adams of the New Orleans Pelicans. Adams is an absolute stud muffin. He's strong, he can rebound, he's a leader, and he's definitely one of the more underrated centers in the league, in my opinion. His game's a little bit limited because he doesn't have outside shooting, but shooting over 60% from the field, great rebounder. Number 91, Tyrese Halliburton, the rookie out of the Sacramento Kings. Halliburton has exceeded all expectations. He's an absolute stud muffin. He's more efficient than we expected already. He's shooting over 43% from 3. He has a bright future in this league. Number 90 is Andre Drummond of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they're sitting him out, and I can't really blame them because they have a center on their roster we're about to go over that I think's better than Drummond. But he's still got talent, but his game just isn't necessarily fit for today's game. He's averaging over 17 points a game, but he's also shooting just 47.4% from the field. Number 89, Lou Williams of the LA Clippers, who said if he was traded from the Clippers, he would retire. And he definitely has value still. He might not be that 6 man of the year dude that would be in the top 50, top 60 range anymore, but he's still a fun player to watch. He's shooting nearly 40% from 3, and he's one of the best role players in the entire league. Number 88, Kelly Oubre Jr. of the Golden State Warriors. Kelly Ubre Jr., I went over him in a video recently, but he's firmly in that top 100 range now if he can just keep up the consistency. He's a fun scorer to watch. He's a good fit for this Golden State team, and he's averaging over 15 points a game. Number 87, Devante Graham of the Charlotte Hornets. Graham's value, I would say, has gone down a little bit this year, and when he comes back, he definitely needs to put on some strong performances, or I would say he is in danger of falling outside of that top 100 range, but for now, I think he does have value as a top 100 player. Number 86, Derrick Rose of the New York Knicks. Rose, his resurgence has been incredible to watch. I'm a Memphis fan for the Memphis Tigers in college, so I remember watching him way back when, and he's always been one of my favorite players, and I'm really glad to see that he's having an impact for a New York team that's likely to make the playoffs at this point. Number 85, Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat. Robinson has become one of the most dangerous long-range shooters in the league. His efficiency has gone down from last year, though, but he's still liable to go off any night, and he is shooting nearly 40% from three still. Number 84, Serge Ibaka of the LA Clippers. Serge Ibaka is an absolute stud muffin who just came out with the rap song, and he has value for one of the best teams in the league, the LA Clippers, and he's developed his game to where he's fit in the new era of basketball. Number 83, Lamello Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. Ball, at this rate, is moving up. I want to be clear. And I think that he will finish higher than this at the rate he's playing. But for now, he is the top rookie in the league. And he did have some rookie struggles early on, but his ability is undoubtable, and he's an absolute stud muffin. Number 82, D'Angelo Russell of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Russell's offensive talent cannot be denied, but he needs to stay on the floor more. He's only played 5 games with Karl Anthony Towns, and he is a defensive liability if we're being completely honest, and Minnesota's just not very good, so his value's kind of gone down a little bit. Number 81, Brook Lopez of the Milwaukee Bucks. Lopez has skill. He's not the flashiest player, but he's a 7-footer who can shoot it from 3, and he helps his team win. And from watching Bucks games, he generally has a positive impact on the floor, and the Bucks are one of the best teams in the league. Number 80, Seth Curry of the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, all the talk is on Stephen, but Seth is having the best season of his career. He is likely to finish in my top 100 for the first time in his career, and his value has gone up significantly. He said that the Mavericks made a dumb business move trading him, and I'm going to be really honest, I'd probably agree with him. Number 79, Malik Beasley of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Beasley has far exceeded the value that Minnesota expected when they traded from him initially last year. He's averaging over 20 points a game. His value is affected because Minnesota isn't very good, but I'm really excited to see what he can do when he comes back from his suspension. Number 78, Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State Warriors. Wiggins is starting to shed that bust label a little bit. There's high expectations as a number 1 pick, but unlike Jabari Parker, who I covered in a recent video, he's having an impact for a winning team, and at the very least, he's a very solid role player. Number 77, Harrison Barnes of the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento struggled lately, but I wouldn't say that's the fault of Harrison Barnes, who's having one of the better seasons of his career, and his value is increasing, and I've seen him mentioned in a lot of trade rumors as well. Number 76, Lonzo Ball of the New Orleans Pelicans. Ball, his value is rising. His three-point shooting is finally starting to come around, and he's starting to look like that player that many expected him to be when he was drafted 2nd overall in the 2017 draft. This is a player whose future I am very, very excited for. Number 75, Al Horford of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Horford is on a Thunder team that doesn't have very high expectations, but I would say he's playing just as solid as he did in Philadelphia. And as he enters his mid-30s, he's still one of the more solid players in the league. Number 74, Dennis Schroeder of the LA Lakers. Or actually, I believe it's pronounced Schroeder. But he maybe isn't that scorer that he was for Oklahoma City, but he's still an effective player for one of the best teams in the league. Number 73 is a guy who is rapidly rising on my list, and that is Mikal Bridges of the Phoenix Suns. He's got offensive skill. He's got defensive skill. He's a stud muffin. What more can you say? He's shooting nearly 43% from 3, and he has a very bright future in this league. Number 72, Montrezl Harrell of the LA Lakers. Similar to Schroeder, one of the better role players for this Lakers team. He's a force on the inside. His game's a little bit limited at this point, but it's still talented enough to be in this top 75 range. He's averaging nearly 14 points a game on nearly 63% shooting from the field. Number 71, Tyler Hero of the Miami Heat. Maybe doesn't have the hype he did last year, and he is scoring at a higher rate than he did last year, but he's also doing so at a less efficient rate, but still, he's an absolute stud muffin. Number 70, LaMarcus Aldridge of the San Antonio Spurs. His role since coming back from injury has decreased a little bit, but I still think he does have value, and he does have value entering his late 30s. Number 69, Buddy Hield of the Sacramento Kings. Hield is one of the more dangerous three-point shooters in this league, but he does need to keep playing consistent because the Kings are struggling, and in order for him to not fall down to ranking more, he's going to need some good performances. Number 68, Victor Oladipo of the Houston Rockets. Oladipo's had an interesting year being traded from the Pelicans. He definitely has value, but he needs to make sure he can stay on the floor, and Houston needs to stop slumping so his value can increase more. Number 67, Jarrett Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers. One of my favorite players to watch recently. Allen has some serious long-term potential at the center position, and I can't believe the Cavs got him for just about nothing because this is a guy that they can build their franchise around. Number 66, Karis LeVert of the Indiana Pacers. News came out recently that LeVert's going to likely come back from the surgery he had after the All-Star break, and I cannot be more excited for Indiana because this kid's a baller. I am very excited to see how he can increase his value once he comes back. Number 65, Joe Ingles of the Utah Jazz. Jordan Clarkson gets all the Sixth Man of the Year talk, but honestly, Joe Ingles, his teammate, isn't too far behind him in that Sixth Man of the Year race. I'd still give Clarkson the edge, but Joe Ingles is playing well despite looking like a janitor. Number 64, Terry Rozier of the Charlotte Hornets. I made a video about Rozier recently. He's kind of cooled off since scoring over 30 points in 4 straight games, but he's still been, I would say, a solid acquisition for this Charlotte Hornets team, and I can tell you at the time many didn't think that was a solid acquisition, so I'm happy for Charlotte. Number 63, Jonas Valanciunas of the Memphis Grizzlies. I am a Grizzlies fan, but I have to say I think he's one of the more underrated centers in the league. He makes plays for his teammates. He can hit from 3. He can rebound. And he's a solid presence to have on the floor. And he's been pretty consistent this year. And I'd say he's one of the more underrated centers in the league. Number 62, Mike Conley of the Utah Jazz. I did get some feedback on this ranking. And the biggest feedback I got was maybe Conley was a little too low. He did miss some time with injury, and I think that halted some of his momentum. I think he would have been firmly in the top 50 had he not gotten injured for a short period of time, but still, I think he'll probably finish higher than this. Number 61, Bojan Bogdanovic of the Utah Jazz as well. He had a very, very slow start to the season, and he's probably the least talked about member among this Utah Jazz core, but he's just as important as anyone else. He's a dangerous three-point shooter. He's shooting over 40% from 3, averaging nearly 16 points a game. One of the more underrated scorers in the league. Number 60, Jeremy Grant of the Detroit Pistons. Grant has definitely increased his value a lot this year. He's shown a lot of his game that many people didn't think he had, but he's averaging over 23 points a game. Detroit isn't very good, but Jeremy Grant is. Number 59, John Wall of the Houston Rockets. Wall has had a comeback for the ages, even though Houston is struggling. Wall is showing that he is still a very, very effective, dangerous player who can go off any night. He's averaging over 20 points a game, and we'll see how he finishes the season. Number 58, Gordon Hayward of the Charlotte Hornets. Hayward was signed by Charlotte this offseason, similar to Terry Rozier, and similar to Terry Rozier, he was on Boston as well before. Many didn't think it was a stellar signing, but Hayward is arguably playing the best basketball of his career. Number 57, Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. Turner is becoming more consistent on offense, but more importantly, he's one of the best defensive centers in the league and a very legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's averaging 13 points a game, but more crazy, he is averaging 3.4 blocks a game, and that is absolutely bonkers. Number 56, John Collins of the Atlanta Hawks. Collins is one of the most talented scoring offensive power forwards in the entire league. His value on this Hawks team is a little weird though, and he has been mentioned in trade talks, so we'll see what happens. Number 55, Jordan Clarkson of the Utah Jazz. I had a video about Jordan Clarkson that received about 13,000 views so far. Thank you to all the fans for that. Clarkson is the clear Sixth Man of the Year candidate so far, and the favorite for that award. He's averaging over 18 points a game, and he is the most dangerous bench scorer in the entire league right now. Number 54, Christian Wood of the Houston Rockets. Wood's value has been highlighted even more recently because since he's been out from injury, I don't believe Houston's won a single game where they were kind of a playoff contender before he went out. So I hope he can come back as soon as possible. Number 53, Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors. Look, Green is not a box score guy, but watching Golden State Warriors games, his impact is unquestioned. He is the playmaker for this Warriors team. He is averaging an insane 8.5 assists a game. Look, I don't care about the shooting stats. His value is unquestioned. Number 52, Colin Sexton of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland struggled a little bit, but Sexton's been a pretty consistent scorer this whole year. He's definitely a guy, in my opinion, that you can build a franchise around. Him and Jarrett Allen is an incredible duo to move forward into the future with. Number 51, Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. Morant is a playmaker. He is an absolute stud muffin. I predicted that he would be a stud muffin years ago. If you look back on my channel, I said he would be a top 5 pick before just about anyone else did. He needs to improve his three-point shooting, but I think he has a bright future in this league. Number 50, Kemba Walker of the Boston Celtics. Walker had a slow start coming back from injury, and I think that his demise was greatly exaggerated by many fans because he's been playing well his last few games. He's averaging over 18 points a game now. He needs to improve the shooting efficiency to get his value up, but we'll see where he finishes on the season. Number 49 is a guy who I've called the most underrated point guard in the league, and that is Dejante Murray. And his value has only risen since I made a video about him. He has become a very consistent scorer, and he has become a player who has a dangerous future in this league. Number 48, Joe Harris of the Brooklyn Nets. Look, Joe Harris Mavericks. So Porzingis could improve his defense, and his star has kind of faded a little bit. But that doesn't mean that he's not an effective player still. Look, he's 7'4" and he's averaging over 20 points a game. He's a stud muffin. Number 45, Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks, who had a slow return from injury but then hit that game winner against Memphis last night. Holiday is still one of the best two-way players in the league, and I think Milwaukee unquestionably made a good decision upgrading him over Eric Bledsoe. Number 44, De'Aaron Fox of the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are struggling, but I think that he's become a more well-rounded offensive point guard. His three-point shooting is pretty decent, and he's averaging nearly 23 points a game. Number 43, Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers. Brogdon had an extremely strong start to the season. I actually had him near my top 30 at one point. He slowed down a little bit, but he's an effective point guard who I think is one of the more underrated point guards in the league. Number 42, Cj Mccollum. McCollum is a guy who, in my opinion, probably would have made the All-Star game had he stayed healthy. Unfortunately, he's been out with injury for a little bit now, and his value has kind of declined as a result. And that's really unfortunate because I do very legitimately think that he would have made the All-Star game had he been able to remain healthy. Number 41, DeMar DeRozan of the San Antonio Spurs. DeRozan's pretty much become a point guard now. His three-point shooting isn't the greatest, but it's become passable at this point. But more crazy, he is averaging 7.3 assists a game, and that's pretty impressive. Number 40, Fred VanVleet of the Toronto Raptors. VanVleet is a guy who is still under the radar, but he has been a pretty consistent scorer. He scored 54 points in a game earlier this year, and for a 6'1 guy, he's an absolute stud muffin. Number 39, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA has improved every single season of his career, and I would say at this rate, he is a guy who could very definitely make that 2022 All-Star game. Number 38, Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors. Lowry, last night I believe, set a Raptors record with 19 assists, and at his age, he's still been playing crazy. I did see that he sold his house in Toronto recently, so he could be a trade candidate. Number 37, Pascal Ciaco of the Sabonis of the Indiana Pacers. Sabonis did make his second straight All-Star game as a alternate, and I do think that honestly, I think